Hello, everybody. My name is Linda Abraham. I'm the president and founder of Accepted, and I'm going to be presenting Get Accepted to Chicago booth today. I'm looking forward to sharing my 25 years of admissions consulting experience with you during the next hour. And I got to tell you, that's a long time to be involved in admissions, but I love helping applicants prepare to apply successfully, present themselves effectively via their applications, and realize their dreams. I can't really imagine a more rewarding career. Before we begin, I want to mention a few to-dos that will help you maximize your time here and one that's going to help us improve these webinars. First of all, if you have not yet downloaded your webinar worksheet, you can find it in the handout section of your control panel. My personal recommendation is that you actually download it and print it out and use it to take notes and follow along. If you want to just have it on your screen, obviously that's up to you. I'm going to ask a few questions during the course of the webinar, and I'm going to ask you to raise your hand in response. You can do so by clicking on the hand icon, two icons underneath the horizontal orange arrow on your control panel. Now, we're going to be asking questions of you during the webinar, and if there are open-ended questions, as opposed to polls or hand-raising kinds of questions, please post your responses in the question window. Number 4, you can win. We're going to have a contest towards the end of the webinar based solely on content presented during the webinar. And you can win a 15-minute free call with an accepted consultant or me during this little contest. So pay attention and have a chance to win. Number 5, when you leave, you're going to receive a brief survey. Please fill it out. We really do value and read your feedback. So don't. If you want to be heard, fill out that survey. I'd like to, at this point, test your hand-raising skill. Please raise your hand if you are here because an MBA, and specifically the Chicago Booth MBA, will whisk you on your way to the career of your dreams. Okay, well, most of you have figured out how to hit the hand icon and are here for the right, oh, great, we have a good audience here today. You're here for the right reasons and you figured out how to raise your hands using go to meeting, or go to webinar rather. Great. Now, the last housekeeping item and participants' favorite is this one. Accepted has a special today for today's webinar registrants, and I'm going to tell you about it now so that you won't be sitting here anxiously waiting to find out at the webinar, at the end of the webinar. $500 off any MBA application package. The code is GETIN. The URL is on your screen, and this is valid today through Sunday. So, if you're interested in having a comprehensive approach to MBA application assistance and you want to save $500, please, by all means, take advantage of this coupon code and offer. All right, I see that go to webinars. This is very interesting. They're offering transcription, and I assume this is for people who are hearing impaired. I think it's a great idea. Okay, here we go. I also like to learn a little bit about my audience before we get started. So, where are you folks located? City and state if you're in the United States. This is for the question window, by the way. City and state, please provide it if you're in the United States. City and country if you're outside the United States. India, welcome. Kailua, Hawaii. All right. India, San Francisco, California. Any fires where you are? Raleigh, North Carolina, San Francisco. Yes. Woo. Sorry to hear that. I'm in LA, and where I am in LA, we don't have them yet. United Kingdom, welcome. New York City, earthquakes. Yeah, we have that too. Portugal. Woo, all right, we have a very international crowd here. India, Asia, Europe, North America, India, Akagana, and we have Africa. Wonderful, welcome, Aaron. Anybody from South America? Not yet, I should say. I won't say no, I'll say not yet. You're welcome. Okay, great, thank you. Next question for you folks is going to appear on your screen. And it has to do with whether you have already applied to Booth. How committed are you to applying to Booth? You already did, maybe, definitely, doubt it, but my mom so wants me to try. So which best identifies you? We have 68% having voted. I'd like to get it a little bit up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to close the poll, share the results. 26% already have applied. Welcome. 53% are definitely applying, 16% are maybe, and 5% are doubt it. Okay, let's see if we can't change your mind. And that's with 86% of having voted. So yes, we have a wonderfully participatory audience today. That's great. Next question for you is, where are you at in the application process? This probably should have been the first one, but the options are applied round 1, applied to some round 2, and applying to others applied to some round 1 and applying to others round 2, or planning to apply round 2 and round 3, or planning ahead for next year. Okay, and I'm gonna, whoa, we have a really active audience. 91% having voted, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm closing the poll, sharing the results. Round 1, it's 15%. Those are the ones who probably also applied to booth already. 10% applying round 1 and round 2. 55% applying round 2 and 3, which makes sense. And 20% planning ahead for next year. Okay, welcome one and all. We've been seeing about between 20 and 30% at these webinars who are planning ahead for next year, which I think is a great development, but obviously we also like those who are in the midst of applying at the same right now. Okay, so I'm gonna hide that poll and let's move on. The plan for the next hour or so is to go through the 4 key elements in my 4-part framework for MBA acceptance and apply the framework to Chicago Booth. Now, I'm proposing a comprehensive approach to the application process, and you can use the strategy framework on other top programs as well. For those of you who have been to any of my earlier webinars, Get Accepted to Harvard, Get Accepted to Wharton, Columbia, etc. Actually, Columbia is coming up. You will recognize the framework. It's the same framework, but I'm going to focus today on Chicago Booth's application. I'm also going to periodically issue certain warnings and caveats because I've seen applicants go down the wrong path or rabbit holes as they apply. So here's the first one. You're not going to get into Chicago Booth by putting on some makeup. Magic won't do it. Not even spin is really what's going to get you in. You need to submit a substantive application, and by substance, I mean competitive qualifications and an effective presentation of those qualifications. In other words, you need to demonstrate fit. Just presentation is not going to work, and sometimes even just competitive qualifications isn't adequate. You need both. The overriding aim is to show that you belong at Chicago Booth. Now let's dive into the nitty-gritty. Obviously, you're here, at least most of you are planning to apply to Chicago Booth. How do you intend to show you belong at Booth? In the question window, please. How do you intend to show you belong at Booth? Any ideas? I suspect there's some latency in the system and everybody's going to be answering all at once in a minute. If there really are no answers, then I'll go ahead and I'll give you my answer. Well, let me first start with Chicago Booth's answer. For Booth, it boils down to curriculum. Okay, now we're getting some answers. Loxman says, I could lead people. That's definitely very important to Booth. Anybody else? No. Okay, no problem. I also meant to say earlier, by the way, that if you have questions in the course of my presentation, please post them in the question window. And if what I'm planning to do is actually unmute the questioner if your question is chosen later on. So if you don't want to be unmuted, let's say you don't have a mic or you're in an office and you don't want it known that you're talking to me, then just write, don't unmute or keep me muted or something like that at the end of your question. It won't affect whether I choose it. I'm going to choose questions based on broad applicability. Michelle also adds a problem solver. Very good. Definitely a good one. Leading through crisis. Excellent. Good. Good. But it's more than that. These are elements that you have to provide. Again, my goal today is to provide a comprehensive approach. So let's go through that approach. For Booth is actually very clear. It says it boils down to curriculum, community, and career. And those are the 3 C's of Booth's MBA admissions criteria. For me, I just told you I have a 4-part framework, and you'll see that there's a close parallel. And Christina, by the way, to my last question says, show I can do the work and make an impact. Really good. The first part is actually a great segue into the first part of my 4-part framework, and that is demonstrate you can do the work and excel. So Christina, I don't know if you were at previous webinars, but that's definitely part of it. One of Booth's stated criteria is curriculum, and a sub-item is academic preparedness. And you have to show that you can do the work. It's simply a ticket of entry. Without that, you don't really have a chance. You have to show that you can handle the curriculum in terms of your academic preparedness, your intellectual curiosity, and communication skills. And you go, oh, Christina's even a first time. Okay, well, you're ahead of the game. The most common way to show preparedness, academic preparedness, or that you can do the work academically is through your undergraduate transcript and test scores. Yes, graduate transcript also helps, but again, not everybody has a graduate one. You want to be at or above the averages for accepted students, ideally for both grades and test scores. If not, how can you convince Chicago to accept you with below average grades? Well, first of all, realize that the average GPA on the US 4.0 scale is a 3.6. And this is per Booth for the class entering in 2019. And it's been that for several years now. All right. Realize that averages are what they are because people are accepted with below average grades. But the farther away you are from that average, or if both your grades and your test scores are below average, the less likely it is that you can effectively demonstrate you're going to be able to do the work. If you're concerned about your undergraduate GPA, I have a lot of tips in the podcast on the screen, accept.com/137. I'm not going to go through them now, but I'd strongly encourage you to listen to this podcast. If your quant skills are weak, but your grades are overall okay, they're competitive, and you're the proverbial poet, consider something like MBAmath.com or quant courses at a local college. That could be statistics for business, calculus if you have the prereqs. If you don't have the prereqs, take them, then take calculus, economics 1, accounting 1. Any of those classes that will kind of get your quantitative muscles, strengthen those quantitative muscles, prepare you for business school, because you really don't want to be struggling with these kinds of basics when you get into an MBA program. Also realize that Booth is a particularly demanding and rigorous program quantitatively. None of the MBA programs are easy quantitatively, but Booth is definitely on the harder end of the scale. Now, a high GMAT score or GRE score can mitigate. For the top 10, including Booth, you ideally want to be at the 80th percentile in both quant and verbal, whether your grades are good or below average, but that's an ideal. It's not a requirement. It's not set in concrete. If you're considerably below on either the verbal or the quant, consider a retake. And if you're not sure whether to retake, again, I'm not going to go into all the criteria here, but I would strongly recommend that you either watch this webinar, which is free and online, and we'll be sending out the URLs after the webinar, or contact us and consult with us as to whether you really need to take the GRE or GMAT again, and also whether, in the context of your work experience, your personal background, and your GPA. This is the kind of thing that we definitely advise clients on. So again, your academic preparedness, your ability to do the work and excel is generally but not exclusively evident in your transcript and test scores, the objective elements of the application. Somehow, some way, the bottom line here is that you need to show you can do the work and effectively and not struggle with either basic math or effective communications. So let's go to the second part of the framework. Have a clear, realistic idea why you want an MBA from Booth and how you intend to use it. Now, again, going back to Booth's 3 C's, curriculum, community, career. Career is the last of its 3 evaluative themes or criteria. And Booth, under that career title or topic, it has 3 evaluative themes or criteria. One of them is sense of personal direction, and two is realistic expectations for the MBA. Booth wants to admit people with those qualities. Now, I attended the AGAC conference about a little over a year ago, which was one day was hosted at Booth, and the admissions committee emphasized to us that they seek self-aware applicants. And somebody asked, what makes an application jump off the page? And the response, and I'm pretty much quoting them, I didn't have a tape recorder while they were talking, but here's what was said. Someone who demonstrates self-awareness, and based on what they've done, you know they will make a mark on the world. That's that sense of personal direction. People who can analyze what they've done in the past, they have a vision for the future, a sense of purpose, and they know that they need this kind of education to take them where they're at, where they've been, to where they want to go. Now, let's look at the Booth goals questions. A classic short-term MBA goal is function, what you want to do in industry, and what industry do you want to do it. And Booth asks for that information. In addition, it also asks in 250 characters or less, and that's about 50 words, what is your immediate post-MBA career goal? And I would suggest that you shouldn't just list it. Don't just say, I want to be an entrepreneur. Go deeper, discuss greater purpose or motivations or challenges. I want to be an entrepreneur to introduce whatever to the world, or solve a specific problem, or serve a particular population. And then another 250 characters, what is your long-term post-MBA goal? I want to grow that company to do X, Y, Z. Or I want to introduce a new process into a particular existing industry. But don't just answer the question again, just go a little bit deeper, discuss what greater purposes or motivations or challenges or impact you intend to have. The purpose of these two questions is to see if you have a realistic yet ambitious goals. Are you going to make that mark? And you certainly can include greater vision or societal good if that's what's motivating you. Now, there also is a new question this year, and very revealing question here. How will the Booth MBA help you achieve your immediate long-term post-MBA career goals? And this essay right here has a 250-word minimum. And let me highlight that for a second. Minimum, okay? So that's a big switch where Booth used to have maximums. Now it's a 250-word minimum. And we're going to dive into this essay question a little bit more. They're giving you a lot more room and clearly want to see your knowledge of and enthusiasm for the Booth MBA program. And Booth says, I think several places, I've certainly seen it in several places, that it is a choice-rich environment. So, and it's very proud of claims to be the world's most flexible full-time MBA program. So the question for you as an applicant is to show that you know how you intend to take advantage of Booth's flexible curriculum, various centers, and strengths to prepare yourself to go down the path outlined in the 250-character responses. You don't have to repeat them. They're on the page, right? But you do have to say, I'm going to take this class. I'm going to get involved here. I'm going to get involved in this project. I want to attend this conference. I want to perhaps lead a brand new initiative that will both contribute to Booth and help me, prepare me to achieve my short-term and long-term goals. Now, Booth asks explicitly about your goals in this application and may also ask in its interviews. The key point here is that your application as a whole must allow the admissions committee to see how your previous education and experience, which is a point I made a second ago, when combined with the Booth MBA, will help you to realize what you want to realize. So you need to show both realistic goals and a sense of direction, and yes, a little bit of ambition. So that's the second part of the framework, right? The first one, show you can do the work and excel. 2, have a goal that requires a Booth MBA. 3, show that you share Booth's values and can contribute to its community. The second of its 3 evaluative criteria. Now, what Booth likes to talk about the Chicago approach, and I'll summarize it as follows. Analytical inquiry, intellectual freedom, which leads to debate, challenging and pursuit of an independent path, and then a diverse but collaborative community. This is a culture that starts with analytical inquiry and curiosity. It provides intellectual freedom to nurture that inquiry and curiosity. And at the same time, Booth claims, quote, our community is intensely collaborative, close quote. Check the ego before you apply. And it seeks people who have an impact and will make an even greater impact in the future. Now, let's unpack these qualities a little bit more. Because I think they're really important in terms of showing fit with Booth's values. Analytical inquiry. Booth is data-driven, which is not shocking for MBA programs. I think it's just a little bit more so. And it wants to provide its students and have students who are interested in acquiring a rigorous approach to data analysis and use of various analytical tools. It also values the questioning, challenging mind. Booth wants people with quote unquote intellectual curiosity. And you, as the applicant, should look for opportunities in the application to reveal the curiosity that animates rigorous inquiry as well as innovation. Now, how can you do that? On some level, your transcript will show if you have a lot of curiosity. Were you very, very narrowly focused on your major? Or, and this is more true of US programs than abroad, where I know the college curriculum tends to be very focused on major and professional preparation. Did you take courses outside your area of focus? Do you have other interests that you were able to realize in the arts or in sports? Those are the kinds of things that Booth is going to be looking for, perhaps politics, your community. Look for opportunities to reveal the curiosity that animates that inquiry, as I said a second ago. Now, who is Booth looking for? People who can handle ambiguity and intellectual freedom, who reflect a willingness to take responsibility for their decisions, specifically their education. So at Booth, you can take required courses in core areas at your level. So accountants don't need to take the basics of financial accounting. And Booth only has one required course. Again, there's enormous flexibility in this program. That one course, though, is very, very instructive. It is LEAD, or Leadership Effectiveness and Development, which teaches key management skills such as negotiation, team building, and giving feedback, or the soft side of management. Now, I believe at the beginning when I asked how are you going to show that you that you're appropriate for Booth, a couple people said, I'm going to show my leadership skills. That was really, really an excellent answer. It's not sufficient, but it is an excellent answer. Actually, two of the respondents said that. It reflects this course reflects the importance of leadership to Booth, and it's the first quality that Booth looks for under its community criterion. So you as an applicant are going to want to show leadership in your responses to the essays, in your resume, and your responses to the interviewer. You may ask your recommenders to highlight your leadership to the extent possible in the recommendation form. And of course, as I said, you need to show that you've handled ambiguity and choice in the past. And again, you can do that through the choices you've made in your resume, your school course choices, and your response responses to the essays. And of course, on and on and on. Or are you going to show some self-discipline and focus? Because guess what they're going to want to look for? They want to see. They're going to want to see the focus and the self-discipline, as well as a good, solid answer to their questions. And if you have handled many projects that are analytical in nature, they're going to want to see that, highlight that. Now, don't highlight it with a bunch of technical jargon. Focus very much on the outcome of your analytical inquiry or the impact you had on the bottom line, but do show that you have used your knowledge or your ability to analyze data and resulting insight to solve a problem, improve a process, innovate, or initiate a project with impact. And then the other thing that they're going to be looking for is, can you handle the tension between community and debate, a culture that simultaneously encourages challenge as well as collegiality? So take a minute right now to write down when you demonstrated or engaged in critical analysis, when you enjoyed intellectual freedom and a collaborative community. And just write it down for yourself. You don't have to put it in the question window, okay? take a minute, write it down for yourself, because I want you to walk out of here knowing that you've actually made progress on your application, although those of you who have already applied are going to have to wait for the interview section of the webinar. While you're making that note, I'm gonna continue. There's a big difference between mouthing platitudes. Your essay should not be full of analytical inquiry, initiative, innovative processes, analytical rigor. You know, the terms that I'm using are not what should be filling up your essays. What should be filling up your essays are examples. Because if you just use terms I'm using in this webinar, you're going to be mouthing platitudes, spitting back their website, and not showing that you share the values. To show that you share the values, you need to provide examples. The former, the spitting back or the spam, well, frankly, that's just like putting lipstick on a pig, and it just isn't pretty. Spamming them with phrases from their website or mantra-like repetition of inquiry, insight, and impact, or culture of debate and questioning, that's shallow. It simply won't do it unless you provide examples. Examples in your essays and job descriptions, bullet points in your resume, those are impactful, those are persuasive, those are compelling. And that's true also in your resume, in as a recommendation, and in responses to interview questions. Because the application as a whole needs to show that you both have what Booth is looking for and can benefit from what Booth offers. To me, Booth is about assuming responsibility in the face of ambiguity and risk, which, by the way, is what being a business leader is all about also. It's about questioning and analyzing, but also about making a difference. And if you focus on that, then you don't have to spit back phrases at all. You really have to tell your story. Another warning. Focus on rankings or brand can obscure this fit aspect of admissions and means you are focusing on the wrong thing. So yes, I know Booth is number 3 this year in US News, but telling them that or other rankings just means you're telling them what they already know and nothing about you. And the result would be that you blend in and you bore. You want to stand out in a positive way. You want to show that you have a distinctive experience and perspective to contribute to the Chicago Booth MBA community. Now, Booth has lots of applicants and it can be choosy. As a matter of fact, Booth is the only top 10 MBA program that did not suffer a decline in application volume in 2018-19 and in fact experienced a slight, small increase, but I'm sure all the rest of the programs would love to have that small increase. With its current application volume, it rejects more than 3 out of every 4 applicants, which is actually better than its peer institutions, but still very tough competition. And that leads to the 4th part of my framework, which isn't really part of Booth's, isn't entirely a part of Booth's 3 criteria. You'll see there's still some overlap. The 4th part of my framework is demonstrate you'll be able to contribute to the Booth community and ultimately make the school proud. You have to be able to contribute distinctively. You have to, and now in terms of Booth 3 C's, where could this possibly match up? Booth wants you to reveal a track record of success professionally and quote unquote philanthropic tendencies, close quote. And it wants to see them throughout your resume, activity history, et cetera, et cetera. So you have to show that you are a person with an inquiring mind who draws insights from that inquiry and then acts on the insights and has impact. So where have you made an impact? Now here I'd like you to post in the question window, where have you made an impact? Where have you made a difference? This could be to a community service organization. It could be on the job. Where have you made a difference? Somebody mentioned leading through a crisis earlier. And I can think of some examples. For example, and I still would like to hear what are yours, but example from me would be you captained your tennis team to the first championship in 10 years. Or you organized a team from your office to run in a marathon and raise money for your favorite charity. Or professionally, did you take over when your team lead suddenly got sick and finished the project on time? Were you then requested by the client to be the team lead on the next project? Any of those would be examples of someone having impact. But if you'd like me to comment on some of the examples you want to give, most clients love this part of the webinar. Again, that would be in the question window. Okay, here we have some response. Work with 9-member board and libraries fundraising associate to launch foundation's first charity golf outing that successfully raised $58,631. Very good. Very good. You might want to talk a little bit more about your specific role, okay? Because you were part of this board, or how did you work with the board or something like that, so that, again, being a member of can be very passive. You want to be active. Christina wrote, I have introduced a healthcare bill to the state of Hawaii that led to improved laws for my profession, reduced administrative burdens for hospitals and physicians, and ultimately increased access to healthcare for patients. Excellent. Okay, that'd be great. And in your essays or resume or wherever you listed this, you would want to describe, let's say, how many more patients or what percent. Try and quantify the impact of this bill a little bit more than you did here. But this is great. This is perfect. Okay. Let's see. Let a successful team convert, let a successful lead convert into a customer impacting our share value and expanded company's portfolio. Okay, great. I think there's some double words there, so I'm having a little trouble with it. And again, I would encourage you to quantify your impact. Okay, did you, how much did you shorten the conversion time or increase the conversion rate? And Vishal says, being there for my friend's entrepreneurial venture, provided marketing assistance for idea pitching. Good. Again, could you quantify? Could you, when you're writing about it, could you quantify a little bit? How much money was your friend able to raise as a result of your assistance? I created a nonprofit to connect combat veterans to work opportunities across the U.S. Great, Mitchell. Same piece of advice. How many veterans were helped? How much, that would be the information I would want. Or how much money did you have to raise? How many people are part of your nonprofit? Started a formal partnership and sustainability division in my organization in ed tech and the nonprofit space. Okay, I think what you want to do is describe what you did and the impact you had. I'm getting a lot of descriptions of what you did, and that's good. And they're all impressive, by the way. But the impact, with the exception of Christina, who talked about the bill, and I just suggested she quantify the impact, you want to be able to talk about what you did as well as the impact. And then worked with a small jewelry business in Kenya to help establish presence outside Africa, which helped the business gain more investment backing. Great. Again, here you have impact as well as what you did, as well as your task. I would like to see that quantified in an application. Okay, let's move on. What about your actual work experience? Some of the achievements that you mentioned in this little exercise that we did were work-related, but most of them were not. Now, work experience counts, and Booth is going to be wanting to know if you have the work experience quantitatively and qualitatively that will allow you to contribute in class and on team projects. Now, the average amount of work experience at Booth is 5 years. It's been pretty consistently that. And there are lots and lots and lots of people who have 5 years of work experience and are not at all qualified to be at a top MBA program, including Booth. So the qualitative component is obviously critical. And what does that mean? What is qualitatively competitive work experience? It has to show the leadership, commitment to analytical rigor, curiosity, and impact that Booth values, or at least some of those qualities, most of those qualities. And this is critical, above average progression on the job. Now, this quality is always important, but it is absolutely mandatory, crucial, if quantity is lacking. Now, how you present your experience is critical. At the beginning of the webinar, I made the point that showing fit is not just about being a competitive applicant. It also is about presenting your qualifications effectively. And this is indeed what we work with most of our clients on. But I'd like to do a little thought experiment with you now, okay? So I'm going to share a poll. Please indicate all the following that apply to you. You've worked in consulting or financial services. You've traveled outside your home country. You have volunteered during and or since college, or none of the above apply to me. Again, the options are, I work in consulting or financial services. I have traveled outside my home country. I have volunteered during and or since college, or none of the above apply to me. Okay. And okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to close the poll with 83% having voted. And here are the results. 54% of you have worked in consulting or financial services. 79% have traveled outside your home country. 96% have volunteered during and or since college. And 0% chose they don't apply. Okay, great. Now here's a different poll. Here's a different poll. Here we go. Here the options are, please choose all that apply to you. 1, I work for Facebook. 2, I went trekking in Patagonia. 3, I volunteered in North Carolina after the devastating hurricane. And 4, none of the above apply to me. Okay. All right, and now we're at 73% having voted. Can we get a little higher? 5, 4, none is an option. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, we're going to close the poll. And this time with 77% having voted, here are the results. 0% work for Facebook, 13% have gone trekking in Patagonia, 4% of you have volunteered in North Carolina after the hurricane there, and 91% wrote that none of them apply to you. Okay, in the question window, please. What's the difference between the two sets of questions? What's the difference between the first and the second set of questions? Anshu, have you been at my webinars before? Okay, Matthew wrote general versus specific. Right, the first set of questions were general. The second one was much more specific. And what happens when I ask general questions, or what happens when let's do it the other way. What happens when I talk in specifics? Resonates more, average versus spectacular. Examples make the application very personal. All right, Lakshmi, you got the answer. Specific answers make you stand out. Exactly. It's harder to distinguish yourself from others when you're not specific. Exactly, Rhea. You create an interesting story, that's true. General has masses, specifics show exclusivity. Exactly, Vishal. You individuate when you write in specifics. When you talk or write in specifics, you are no longer very similar to everybody else. You're no longer, the 96% who volunteered. You're the one of 4% who volunteered after the hurricane in North Carolina. Okay, so how you present your experience, whether it's professional or personal, will allow you to naturally stand out if you present it in terms of specifics. It will reveal you as a unique individual you truly are. Why is distinctive contribution important? Well, one very simple reason is because Booth says so. It wants people with, quote, a unique perspective, close quote, and a track record of success. Track records of success are usually distinctive. The second reason is because Booth, as I mentioned before, like all elite MBA programs, has too many qualified applicants. It rejects approximately 77.5% of all its applicants last year. And the implication from that acceptance rate, it has no reason to admit someone without something distinctive to contribute. There's no benefit to Booth in accepting someone lacking a history of leadership and growth in multiple arenas, a record of past impact and contribution. Even at data-driven programs like Booth, it's not just about the numbers, whether it's their ranking numbers or your GPA, GMAT, GRE. It's a whole picture. And that's why, again, I have a 4-part framework, and that's why they have admissions office. It's not just about, matching GMATs and GPA scales. So let's review the 4 strategic steps you need to think about before and while putting your application together, and then we're going to move into the, looks like I forgot a slide there. Number 1, show you can do the work and excel. Have a clear, realistic idea why you want an MBA from Booth. 3, show that you share Booth's values and meet its criteria and would fit into its community. And 4, demonstrate that you'll be able to contribute to Booth's community, have the impact they seek, and ultimately make the school proud. Now, let's look at the specific elements of the Booth application. I already touched briefly on the grades and transcripts as well as Booth's values. Let's look at other elements, starting with the job and activity history. Now, you as an applicant, you need to make the most of the 1 to 2 page resume to show impact. And I would go back to the exercise we did a little bit more about when you've made a difference, to show impact and contribution, and that you belong at an institution that is proud of its inquisitive analytical culture. So what would be a good bullet point and a bad bullet point? Let's say you're a financial analyst or an analyst of any kinds. To write in the bullet point, I used advanced Excel macros to analyze data, tells them absolutely nothing, because they know you're a financial analyst, and that's what financial analysts do. But if you say, as somebody did in this exercise a few minutes ago, I analyzed the data and came up with a way to improve our conversion, to save money, to speed our supply chain, to reduce time to market. All those things would be going beyond just what your duties and responsibilities are and showing contribution and impact. For Booth, the job history gives you a wee bit of room to elaborate on your work experience. In your job history, you have 700 characters, approximately 140 words to describe each job, 50 words to describe your reason for leaving that any previous jobs. And again, in that job description, don't use it to describe your task. Use it to focus on impact, contribution, leadership challenges that you faced and handled. You can't do it all because you only have 700 words, 700 characters rather, but use it to go beyond and to go into greater depth. And you're going to relate, quantify impact whenever possible. That was one of the other things I was advising you to do above, and obviously be succinct. The second of Booth's 3 criteria is community, and Booth asks you to list all community service activities. For the details, and they have very complex details, complete details, read their instructions. But Chicago Booth values community involvement, and we know it comes in, and they say that we know it comes in many different forms. Quote, tell us how you have been involved in your community. And each activity has a box like this, a window like this. Now you can include public service, extracurricular activities, and also college activities. And here, big point, and this goes again back to that little exercise we had before. Activity means active. It's involvement. It's something that you've done. It's not the same as being a member or attending meetings. So if you're a member of a board, as James said, that accomplished something really good, yes, you're a member of the board and teamwork is also valued, but do try and highlight your specific role in working as a member of this team. And there's also being a member of an organization, which means that you carry a membership card in your wallet. There's attending meetings, which means that you sit in a chair. That's not the same as being actively involved. Again, we're talking about assuming responsibility, participation, and leadership. That's what Booth is interested in. Now, this window would be a great place for you to show that you have the leadership and teamwork, interpersonal skills that Booth is seeking. Let's move on to the essays. Essay 1, first a word about the essays in general. Realize that all these essays should be something that only you can write, and you should write it specifically for this application. The questions, yes, you can borrow stuff from other essays from other schools, but you really have to think about Booth's applications, the other parts of your application, and what you're trying to achieve with each individual essay. Now, Booth required essays have a 250-word minimum. So they certainly don't want to read War and Peace in your response, but they want you to go into some depth. This is not supposed to be a superficial answer. And they also, I think, are testing your judgment, as I said before, and your ability to handle choice and ambiguity. So the question is, how will the Booth MBA help you achieve your immediate and long-term post-MBA career goals? To answer this question, you need to know 3 things. 1, your short-term goal. 2, your long-term goal, and you need that for the other questions that we discussed a couple of minutes ago. And 3, the Booth program and how you intend to use it. Once you have that information, here are 2 possible approaches. They're not the only ones, but here are 2 possible approaches that you can use in answering the question. 1, start with uninfluential experience from the past that convinced you of your goal, that motivated you to take this path. Now, keep it short. This is a very future-oriented question, but if you want to highlight this past experience, just keep it short and then move on, and have the rest of the essay should focus on how you're going to use the Booth MBA program to realize that goal, both at Booth and beyond. Another approach, an alternative approach, is to start with some kind of dream day in the future where you're realizing your goals, you're having a fantastic experience and impact, and then go back and say how Booth and your short-term goal got you to that dream day, basically a day in the life approach. Now, essay 2. Chicago Booth immerses you in a choice-rich environment. How have your interests, leadership experience, and other passions influenced the choices in your life? Again, a 250-word minimum. This is probably, for most of you, going to be a non-professional essay, or at least partially non-professional. They want to see a thoughtful, self-aware discussion of how your interests, leadership experiences, and other passions and interests have shaped your decisions and molded you. Now, obviously, if you've been strictly work-focused and kind of unidimensional, you're going to have a hard time answering this question. You need to be someone who has those other experiences and interests. I think a really effective way to approach this question, which is primarily asking about your past, is to tell a story. It's much more engaging than a theoretical treatise, and you can use that story to illustrate your point. Start with a great story about how your interests, leadership, and experiences have influenced your choices, and then summarize it in the conclusion. Bring it together. All right, now an optional essay is also part of the Booth application. Booth does say, is there any unclear information in your application that needs further explanation? If so, please use this question to clarify. So what in your application could confuse a reader, or cause them to draw the wrong and unwanted conclusion from the elements provided in the required sections of the application? Whatever you put here, it should reveal the self-awareness and critical approach that Booth seeks. It should also show you as a person assuming responsibility for your decisions, both good and bad. It's an opportunity for you to provide context for something that may not reflect well on you, or showcase another element of your background or experience. Don't waste their time rehashing material already discussed or writing about insignificant events. Additional information could be an obstacle overcome, a part of your personal background that is unusual and its impact on your candidacy, circumstances surrounding a personal achievement that you didn't have room to provide elsewhere. It certainly could be something in your application that might leave a doubt or cause the reader to have a question. Again, answer it here. And the ones that Booth suggests is For example, if your current supervisor isn't writing your letter of recommendation, or why your grades dipped during your junior year. The key word, I think, is context. I don't even like explanation because that can veer into excuse. Try to provide context. Now, recommenders. Booth wants 2 recommendations, and it prefers that the first one be from your current supervisor, but understands if you're not comfortable asking your current supervisor. If you don't ask your current boss, explain it in the optional information section. And again, Booth provides more instructions on this in its letter recommendation page. The second letter can be professional in nature or from an organization, club, or volunteer commitment. And they're seeking a different perspective from the second letter recommendation on your skills from people who can assess your strengths and weaknesses. Now, I also have 2 criteria for letters of recommendation writers, for your recommenders. You want to ask people who know you well and can assess your performance based on their personal interactions with you. That's number 1. They have to know you well. Number 2, for me, is ask if each is willing to write you a strong, positive letter of recommendation. If they hesitate for any reason, be it because they don't have as high an opinion of you as you thought they did, or they don't have the time to write it, move on and ask somebody else. You may want to share with them 10 tips for recommenders. Again, the URL is on the screen. Because it does encourage them, just like I've encouraged you, to write in specifics and provide concrete examples. Booth also asks why you chose your recommenders. Just answer the question succinctly, but give some sense of the nature of your professional relationship with your recommenders, and if possible, their experience with pre-MBA types or their ability to evaluate leaders or people with the qualities that Booth seeks. Whatever you do in choosing recommenders, don't be seduced by title. Booth isn't. Don't choose the executive VP whose hand you shook once. Choose your immediate boss. What about the interview at Booth? What can you expect? Well, it's conducted by admissions staff, students, or alumni, so you don't know what type of person will be interviewing you, and that's okay. Booth, it's a blind interview. All the interviewer is going to know is what they see in your resume. Booth's advice in an online chat was, quote, be authentic, transparent, and have a thorough understanding of why you wish to go to Booth. Now, I hope this theme of why Booth and knowledge of the Booth program is coming through loud and clear. It's one of their 2 big essay questions. It's a short, it's likely to be asked in the interview. Be prepared to answer the question. Know how you intend to use the Booth experience and education to achieve your goals. Know what appeals to you about the Booth community and approach to MBA education. How can you prepare? Try and review if you can find threads on either GMAT Club or Beat the GMAT before you interview so that you can see interview feedback. Review your application before you interview because certainly you put there information about why Booth. And also the experiences that you are most proud of, because that's what should be in your application. And then prepare to explore your past experiences to show fit with Booth's values and criteria. Ahead of time, what I would suggest you do is, number 1, identify experiences that you're proud of. Perhaps something happened since your application that you'd love to highlight. Write it down. Write down which qualities that Booth values are reflected in that achievement or experience. Also, take a few of the criteria, make a list of the criteria that Booth provides on its criteria page, which we'll get to in a couple of minutes. And next to those criteria, discuss experience, achievements, things you're proud of that reflect those criteria. So you can be able to go either way. You can take an example or story experience and bring out the criteria that Booth values, or if asked about a specific quality, you'll have at your ready experiences that you're ready to highlight. Also prepare questions to ask about Booth, whether you're talking to an alum, a student, or an admissions officer. Let's go back to your goal in submitting an application to Booth, and that's show that you belong at Booth. Now, the first 2 of you here who answer the next question get a free 15-minute consultation with an accepted consultant It could easily be me, probably will be me actually. So the question, I hope you're all ready. Fingers poised over the keyboard. Please answer the question in one box. Don't hit enter in the middle. What are the 3 C's of Booth's criteria as they evaluate your application? Okay, Rhea and Lakshmi, got it. Okay, and they are curriculum, community, career. Actually, most of you got it. Curriculum, community, career. Okay, and then now that's what Booth is looking for. I presented a 4-part framework that I'm going to go through now, just to review before we head to the Q&A. There's again, the curriculum, community, and career. Here are my 4. Number 1, show you can do the work and excel. Number 2, have a realistic goal that requires a Booth MBA. Number 3, show that you meet Booth's criteria and share its values. And number 4, show that you will contribute distinctively to class discussions and teams, the school's community, and ultimately make the school proud to have admitted you. Final word of advice, and yes, one of my caveats. The admissions committee readers are sharp, intelligent professionals. Don't try to trick, fake, or fool. The best presentation of you is not makeup. It's an authentic reflection of your achievements and dreams, keeping in mind the 4 parts of the framework that will make Booth want you. Now, before we head into Q&A, I have a question for you in the question window, please. What was the most valuable piece of advice, insight, or information for you in today's webinar? Contribute distinctively. Thank you, Matthew. Anybody else? Have a clear understanding of why Booth. Excellent. Yeah, that's really important to them. Good, Christina. Glad that came through. Quantifying your impact wherever possible. Good. Being authentic. Excellent. I'm glad. Quantify achievements. Good, Mitchell. Thank you. Leave your ego behind when you apply. That's good. Thank you. Articulating your goal as a vision. Understanding why your goals align with getting an MBA at Booth. Great. Been a great audience. Okay. Now, these are the elements that Accepted wants to help you with in your application. We want to help you show that you belong at Booth. In this webinar, I've given you a comprehensive approach to getting accepted to Chicago Booth. I've also given you the reason that each part of the 4-part framework, which works for all top programs, is necessary for acceptance. What I can't give you is the how of applying this framework to your individual situation, helping you to produce that authentic reflection of your unique dreams and achievements. That requires individual advising with an experienced MBA admissions professional from Accepted. We want to guide you in showing that you both belong at Booth or other top MBA program and stand out in the applicant pool. And we have advised thousands of successful MBA applicants over our 25 years in business on how to create applications that accomplish really everything we've discussed here today. And we know it's not easy. It's hard and time-consuming to juggle work, life, family, community service, and applications. It's hard to know where and how to apply. We understand. We've been there many, many times over the last 25 years with thousands of clients. Now, here's what you get at Accepted. Expertise and experience that comes from decades on both sides of the admissions desk. That's what our staff has. The confidence that comes when you know you're working with a seasoned, dedicated, top-notch pro. And you have options to choose from that fit your needs, so you save time and apply effectively. And you also can get a comprehensive approach that allows you to show you belong at Chicago Booth. Now, some may say Accepted seems expensive, and we're definitely not a cheap service because of the quality of our staff. But our fees are peanuts compared to the cost of an MBA. And furthermore, there are expensive and less obvious risks associated with not using Accepted. Reapplication can easily cost a few $1,000s. One additional year of pre-MBA earnings can cost in the 5 figures in dollars, and there's the potential that you could have gotten into a better program with lifelong higher earnings and network. I'll let you calculate the cost. Every year, we work with applicants who talked to us a year earlier and decided after taking the do-it-yourself approach and getting rejected to work with us a second time around. They would have been better off financially working with us initially, and so would you. But enough from me. What do accepted clients say? Well, here's a tiny sample of feedback. I wanted to thank you, Esmeralda, for all your help. I couldn't have done it without you. Accepted to Booth and Columbia. Or testimonial 2. I am really happy. I would like to thank Jennifer once again for her wonderful guidance, without which this would not have been possible. Accepted to Wharton and Booth. Or this one. Wanted to drop a note that I have been accepted to Wharton, Booth, and Yale this year for MBA admissions. I want to thank you for your firm's terrific service, and particularly send my appreciation to Natalie, who has absolutely been the most fantastic MBA admissions consultant I have worked with. Here's what I'd like you to do after the Q&A. It's now October. We can still work on your Booth applications for their January round 2 deadline, which is January 7th, 2020. Contact us ASAP and save that. We'll get to the special in a second. And we'd be happy to help you from scratch or review and edit your essays. Our goal is to guide you so that you present all 4 parts of the framework that I outlined today and show that you both belong at Chicago Booth and are a standout in the applicant pool. Take these steps to work with an accepted MBA admissions consultant and have the kind of experience and success that the clients you just heard from have had. Now, I promised you a special offer to webinar registrants, and I actually announced it at the beginning of the webinar. Here it is, $500 off any MBA application package. This is our comprehensive flat rate option that is a perfect match for the approach I've recommended to you today. But before you leave to select the service that's right for you, let's have our Q&A. Okay, I'm happy to take questions. Let's see, I know that some were posed before, and you're welcome to present them now. Okay. And I know this gentleman didn't, or this person, I'm not sure if it's a man or woman, did not want to be unmuted. So the question is, what is a strong GRE score for Booth? It's basically, again, it's the 80th percentile on both scores. I believe Booth is now posting its GRE scores, though I'm not positive. And if it is, you can get a very good idea from looking at that. But basically, you'd want to be at the 80th percentile. Okay. Christina, can I unmute you? Okay. So Christina, you want to ask your question about GPA?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yep. Hear you well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was wondering how GPA is calculated or evaluated. My undergrad GPA is less than stellar, but my graduate GPA and some other post undergrad work is excellent. And I was just wondering, is it cumulative? Is it individual? Just kind of wondering how they figure that out.
Right. And there's no formula. Certainly not at most schools. It might be at one that I can think of, but there's no formula. The fact that your grad GPA is significantly higher, as excellent as you say, is definitely going to be a major factor.
Okay.
It's viewed holistically. So, you know, the other grades that you have, was there any trend to your undergraduate GPA?
With my yes, I had improved. It took me about
Good.
4 years to figure out how to be a student.
Okay. But there was upward trend. If there was an upward trend, that's what they're going. That is going to carry a lot of weight, especially if it's followed by extensive academic work where you excelled. That's going to really carry a lot of weight. Strong test score will also help. I think you should. Well, you'll listen to the accept.com/137. I go through 5 things that you should do to mitigate the impact of a low GPA. High test score helps, as I mentioned. Trend is important. Excellent grad grades will also help. So again, this is a kind of thing, if you talk to us individually, then we can address in greater detail. But I think you've done the right things and you're doing them. Okay. So, all right, you're very welcome. see, next one. Next one is, okay, Ria asks, is being a young applicant a disadvantage? 22, 2 years of professional experience. It can be. It can be definitely a disadvantage. Ria asked also not to be unmuted. So there's always a possibility that you can, work for another couple of years and then apply. So that's one advantage of that. Disadvantage is that time takes care of it. Booth has been more open to younger applicants than some MBA programs, but clearly the average amount of work experience is 5 years. You only have 2. You are 22. It is a disadvantage. We do have an article on the site about applying as a younger applicant. Rachel, can you post that? And that will give you some suggestions. The only way to find out is the quality of your experience so rich that they'll overlook the relative lack of experience is to apply. They're not going to reject you just because you're 22. Only 2 years of work experience, they may want somebody with more experience. But thank you. All right, let's see what else we have here. Okay, Rishi asks, and also asked not to be unmuted, are criteria consistent across B schools given the end goal for all is to produce responsible business leaders? No, there are differences. There definitely are differences. For example, Harvard does not weigh goal as much as Chicago Booth. There's no question. I think some schools will weigh the GMAT a little bit more than others. Some will weigh grades a little bit more than others. They will all be looking for fit, and fit will if you say you want to go into, let's say, real estate, and they have a very limited real estate program, well, that's not really demonstrating fit. On the other hand, if you apply to a program with a rich program in real estate, like Wharton or Columbia, then you will be demonstrating fit with that goal. So, the goal is if you're asking about the framework, I think the framework will work across all business schools. Yes, I just said Harvard emphasizes goal a little bit, yes, but they can still ask about it in the interview. MIT, I think, also emphasizes goal a little bit less, but it's not like they don't care about it. So there are some differences, but the framework does work. Did I answer your question, Rishi? Let's see. Okay, great. Now let's see. Okay, Lakshmi, I'm going to unmute you, and you can ask your question, and we can also have a couple of follow-up questions there, okay? Go ahead. You're unmuted.
Hi.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Can you say that again? Got messed up there.
Yeah. So my question is regarding the essay that is particularly for the people who have been invited. Both asks about who or what has been the biggest motivator in your life. I got a little confused about whether they're asking for inspiration or motivation, because there is a slight difference between the two of them. And I wanted to understand from you if you have an idea of what they're looking for when they're asking such a question.
I'm going to go back to the exact wording of the question. Okay, so let's go back up to that slide. It actually doesn't ask about motivations. It's asking.
Sorry, I'm talking about the interview. the essay questions regarding the interview. This is not related to the application. It's after you get accepted for an interview.
Okay, so the question is, Booth asks, who in your life has been your biggest motivator? What or who?
What in your life?
And they're looking to understand more about what makes you tick, what makes you act, what makes a difference to you. So it's not so much, I mean, they're not just, in other words, if you say, I don't know, they say my mother is my biggest motivator. The answer in and of itself is not really what they're looking for. They want to know why this has been your biggest motivator. What did it lead you to do?
All right. So,
okay.
Could we, yeah. No, I think I'm good.
Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's see. So thank you very much for that question. And then, let's see what else we have here. Aditya asked, does it hurt the application to say that I would like to return to my home country post MBA? It doesn't hurt at all. Good question. It may even be very realistic. So it's fine. All right, what else do we have here? Matthew has an interesting question. Matthew, I'm going to unmute you about GPA. Go ahead, Matthew. Matthew, you there? Hello? I guess he's typing. Okay, well, I'm going to pose this question. Hello, Matthew? Do you hear me? No. Okay, so his question is, my undergraduate university does not calculate GPA, and many classes were taken pass-fail. Brown also does not rank student academic performance percentile. How do I present this record on an application effectively? It's okay. No problem. Well, your transcript is going to be your transcript. Obviously, Brown is an outstanding university, one of the Ivy League universities. The fact that you got in is going to be good. Your GMAT, I think, is going to be looked at more closely, as will any graded courses taken outside of the university. Or if you really don't, you're concerned that it's going to be misinterpreted, then take some classes now and earn A's in them. But I don't think that it's, I don't think it's going to be a problem. Not coming from Brown, unless your GMAT or GRE are low. Okay, so, but thank you very much for the question. All right, let's see what else we have here. Okay. So Lakshman has, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing names, an interesting question and situation. I'm going to unmute you, and here you go. You're welcome, Matthew. Lakshman, you there?
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Yeah, so my question is, I have about 5 years of professional experience and a low GPA in my undergraduate, and I do not have any certifications or external certifications or industry certifications which are related to my profession. And what if I have a very good GMAT score and a strong essays in the application? Would my profile be considered for the round 2 or the round 3 for the next year admits, or do you think that I should prepare my profile in line to substantiate the low GPA which I have in my undergraduate?
You can, well, one thing you should definitely do is, and you don't have to tell me what it is now, but I would ask, were there extenuating circumstances that contributed to the low GPA? For example, were you working your way through school? You would definitely want to let them know that. The other thing that you could do is start taking some online courses. You HBS Online starts regularly throughout the academic year, perhaps take some extension courses. The quarter system, I think, will start, in January, and you'd have grades probably by March, April. I think it's too late to start the full quarter now. And there are online options that would allow you to demonstrate that you can perform academically. I thought I heard an accent. Are you currently outside the United States?
Yes, I'm from India.
Okay. So your options would be pretty much online. And again, HBS Online is one option. It's a fairly expensive one, but it's a credible one. And the other would be extension classes online. Again, they tend to be more expensive. You could also take things like Coursera, but I'm not sure that it has the credibility that you're looking for. In terms of taking, applying round 2, round 3, or waiting till next year, I wouldn't recommend applying round 3 at all for you. Given the low GPA, given that you're in India and you're going to need to get a visa, I don't recommend that at all. So in my mind, it would be round 2 or next year. The advantage of next year is that you could take some courses and get A's. I'm assuming that you already have the strong GMAT or GRE, and then apply round 1 next year with some recent A's, a strong GMAT. Obviously, I'm assuming you have excellent work experience, and that would kind of be ideal. The question in my mind for you would boil down to, do you apply now to have some chance of starting your MBA in September or August, or do you wait and have the best chance but a year later? And that's a personal choice. If we were to advise you, we'd weigh up the pros and cons of each and give you a suggestion or opinion. But that's a personal choice. Which is more important to you, getting accepted the first time around, or having a chance of getting accepted now, even if it's not quite as strong as it might be in September? So that's kind of how I see it. The other option is not to apply. We haven't discussed how low your GPA is. That also is part of the equation. If it's a little bit low, then I would say, try now. If it's really low, significantly lower than that of applicants to Chicago Booth, then you probably should wait and build up that transcript a little bit, an alternative transcript. And did I answer your question?
Yes, yeah, perfect. Thanks for the detailed response.
You're very
I
welcome.
understood the question which I have. So yeah, I'll boil down to the answers.
Yes. And the other thing is, if you do apply, whether you apply round 2 or next year, do address the circumstances that surrounded your, the poor performance. Provide context for that. And that's one of the things that's discussed in that podcast that I mentioned earlier. Okay, so thank you again for your question. All right, here we go. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to take one more question. Okay, so Yasmin asks, how do you show community service if you do not belong to a volunteer or a formal organization with a regular schedule, but you have volunteered at various different organizations, soup kitchens, or other volunteer activities, and when they are available? Thank you. You discuss it. You say, you tell us, you could tell a story, especially in Essay 2, about your volunteering. You could, in your community service window, if you don't want to take a whole essay for it, talk about your volunteering and try and quantify how much you volunteered. Is it 2 hours a month? Is it 1 day a month, or or is it 1 day a week, or 1 afternoon a week? Whatever it is, talk about it in that activity window, and obviously be factual. Don't exaggerate or embellish, because if you're caught doing that, you're toast. But let them know about it. Otherwise, they're not going to. If you've taken it as a serious commitment, then portray it as such. Okay, and then okay. So I'm going to take one more question. You're very welcome, Yasmin. Okay, Christina, can I unmute you? I think I unmuted you before, so I assume I can do so again. You had another question.
Yes, I did. So I was earlier it was asked if there was a disadvantage if you were a young applicant. I was wondering, what about the opposite? Are there concerns when I hate asking questions about age, but are there any concerns when evaluating an older applicant, someone who's had maybe quite a bit of experience?
Well, let's instead of talking about age, let's talk about levels of experience. How about
Okay.
that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How much, may I ask, how much post college experience do you have? Help me.
Greater than 15.
Greater
I'm
than
no
15.
I'm no spring chicken.
Okay. That can be an issue.
Okay.
It can be an issue there because the schools are aimed at helping their students get jobs after the MBA program, and they're concerned about their ability to place older applicants because the career placement is geared towards a certain level of employee. So there are several options for you or for people with more than, let's say, 8 to 10 years of work experience. 8, I would say. One is to, in your essays, maybe the additional information essay, address this possible concern and say, I'm going to find a job on my own, or I have an employer who's ready to take me back. Then they don't have to worry about it. Obviously, you have to know how you're going to use the booth program. You have to do all the other things that I discussed,
Right.
But address that concern proactively. Another option is to consider some programs that are geared much more towards people at your level of experience. Specifically, are you familiar with the Sloan Fellows programs?
I am not.
Okay, look them up.
Okay.
They're great. I'm serious. MIT Sloan Fellows program, London Business School Sloan Fellows program, and it's no longer Sloan Fellows. It's the Stanford MSX in leaderships and
Okay, got it.
for experienced mid-career professionals. These are full-time programs. They either award an MBA or an MS in management, and they're usually 1 year, and they're geared towards people with 10, 15, 20 years of experience.
Okay.
And we've had several applicants, clients go to these programs. They're thrilled with them, absolutely thrilled with them.
Great.
I've had podcasts with the directors of admission, with some people in these programs, really happy with them. So, check them out. Okay.
Good to know.
Yeah. Okay. So here you go. I'm going to mute you again, and let's wrap this up with a thought and a story. The story, here's the thought. There's a paradox at the heart of MBA admissions. For a program like Booth, you have to show that you fit in and stand out. By fitting in, I mean you to show that you belong at the target school, in this case, Chicago Booth, in terms of your goals, your academics, your work experience, and values, and that you're going to be a valuable member of Booth's community. That's parts 1 through 3 of the framework you've learned today. But you also have to stand out. You need to stand out in a highly qualified, intensely competitive, and talented applicant pool. That's part 4 of the framework. Show that you're going to contribute distinctively, that unique perspective that I mentioned earlier, add a special something to the community. To get a little poetic, admissions committees like to look at their class like a mosaic perhaps, or a needlepoint, and each thread or stone has to add its distinctive shade or color to the whole picture. Now, there's no need to navigate this paradox alone. Again, we here at Accepted are here to mentor you to acceptance. And here's the story of one client. This is a client who came to us very frustrated and discouraged, and I'm going to just read excerpts from it. I wanted to take a minute to let you know how great of an experience I've had working with Natalie. My conversation with Natalie, after speaking to another consultant, was completely different. She eventually recommended that my reach school from the other consultant should be my backup school. While I still haven't fully decided on which school I'm going to attend, I have options available to me in top 20 programs with major scholarships, and I will likely be taking a spot at Booth, something that I never thought would be possible when I first started looking at MBA programs. I can't emphasize enough how great of an asset Natalie has been. This was from an Indian male applicant who first contacted us with a mid 600 GMAT. He retook as we advised, did well, and then worked with Natalie the rest of the way. If you want a reliable guide on this journey who will kindly give you insightful, trustworthy, and necessary feedback to help you get into your favorite school and pursue your dream career, follow the steps that I've outlined before, which are the steps that were taken by the clients you've heard from. So I want to thank you at this point for your time, your attention, your attendance. You've heard from several clients who sought acceptance help and successfully navigated the paradox that we've been talking about to acceptance. They had all 4 parts of the framework. They applied confidently and successfully. They're now pursuing their dreams. Follow that well-trodden path. Take advantage of the special that you see on your screen and pursue your dreams too.